Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, stretching, checking your phone, and then, without warning, the world stops. Not you, not your car, not your house, just the planet itself. 1 second, Earth is spinning at over 1,000 miles per hour. The next, dead still. And here's the problem. You're not strapped down. Neither is anything else. At the equator, every single thing, oceans, cars, skyscrapers, you, is moving eastward at 1,670 kilometers per hour. That's faster than the speed of sound. You don't feel it because everything's moving together. But if the Earth suddenly stops spinning, the ground beneath you would slam to a halt while you keep going. Cars would turn into missiles. Skyscrapers would tear themselves apart. Trees would rip out of the ground and hurl through the air like spears. And the oceans? They wouldn't politely stay in their basins. Billions of tons of water would surge outward, crashing over coastlines in tsunamis taller than skyscrapers, swallowing entire cities in minutes. Imagine every shoreline on Earth being hit with a wall of water that doesn't stop. The atmosphere wouldn't just sit still either. The air around the planet is also moving at over 1,000 miles per hour. If the Earth stops but the air doesn't, it turns into a global shockwave, a storm so violent it would rip apart everything in its path. Think about the strongest hurricane ever recorded. Now multiply it by 10, by 100. We're talking winds so fast they could strip paint off steel, shred buildings, and literally sandblast the surface of the Earth. In those first few minutes, the world would turn into a blender. Skyscrapers? Gone. Highways? Gone. Everything loose, every rock, every car, every person, flung eastward at deadly speed. And if you somehow managed to survive the first hit, the flying debris, the crushing waves, the screaming winds, you'd face another question. What happens next? Because the stopping of Earth's spin wouldn't just be one moment of destruction. It would be the beginning of something far stranger. If the first few minutes were pure chaos, the hours that follow would be worse. Here's the thing most people forget. The air doesn't stop when the Earth does. The ground might be frozen in place, but the atmosphere, the blanket of air wrapped around our planet, still has all that momentum. It keeps racing eastward at over 1,000 miles per hour, and now there's nothing slowing it down. What does that mean? It means the entire planet gets hit by a storm so big it makes every hurricane in history look like a breeze. The first thing you'd notice is the sound. A deep, deafening roar as winds tear across continents, ripping up forests like grass, flipping cities upside down. But it doesn't stop there. These winds wouldn't just be strong, they'd be apocalyptic. They'd sandblast entire landscapes, stripping soil from the ground, tearing asphalt off roads, and blasting the paint off anything that's still standing. Even mountains wouldn't escape untouched. And think about this, those mega-tsunamis we talked about, they're still out there. Now they're being whipped and shoved around by winds so violent that waves as tall as skyscrapers could be hurled hundreds of miles inland. The air itself becomes a weapon. Anything caught in it, trees, animals, even buildings, turns into deadly shrapnel. Then as the hours crawl by, another nightmare begins to unfold. Without the Earth spinning, the delicate balance that keeps our climate stable is shattered. The day-night cycle, the rhythm that life on Earth has depended on for billions of years, is suddenly broken. The side of the Earth facing the sun begins to bake. Temperatures soar, asphalt melts, rivers boil. Meanwhile, the side plunged into darkness begins to freeze solid. The wind doesn't calm down, it just keeps moving, redistributing heat, moisture, and destruction in unpredictable, terrifying ways. And here's the chilling part. If you've somehow survived all of this, the crushing tsunamis, the screaming air, the collapse of everything you knew, you're only through the first phase. Because what comes after this storm? A new Earth, one that looks nothing like the world you once knew. When the last of the megastorms die down, when the roaring winds finally run out of momentum, the Earth would be unrecognizable. The oceans would have swallowed entire coastlines, then retreated into strange, swollen basins. Cities would be gone, scraped off the map like chalk wiped from a blackboard. Forests shredded into splinters. mountains scarred by debris. The planet wouldn't just look different, it would be different. But the real nightmare? It's not what you see, it's what you feel. Because without the Earth spinning, our world wouldn't have a 24-hour day anymore. It would take an entire year for the Earth to make one full turn around the sun. That means one side of the planet would face the sun for 6 months straight, while the other side would be locked in 6 months of darkness. On the daylight side, the heat would be relentless. Oceans would evaporate, turning the air into a thick, suffocating steam. Deserts would spread like wildfire. Groundwater would boil away. On the dark side, the cold would be merciless. Temperatures would plummet so low that the very air could freeze. Entire continents would be buried under ice thicker than skyscrapers. In between, though, there would be a thin, fragile twilight zone, a narrow band where the sun would hang low on the horizon forever. This is where the temperature might stay just barely livable. Imagine it, one strip of land snaking around the globe, caught between fire and ice. If there's any chance for humanity to survive, this is where we'd have to go. But that ribbon of twilight wouldn't be paradise. Far from it. Fierce winds would whip endlessly from the scorched side to the frozen side, dragging storms of unimaginable power through the twilight. The oceans, what's left of them, would slosh and surge into bizarre new patterns, forming strange alien coastlines. The map of Earth as we know it would be erased. New deserts, new ice caps, new seas, and the question every survivor would be asking isn't just, where can we live? It's, can we even live at all? If there are survivors after the stopping of Earth's spin, and that's a very big if, they'd face a brutal, impossible choice: adapt or die. The only hope would be that narrow twilight band, the strip between the burning half of Earth and the side frozen in eternal night. But even there, survival wouldn't be simple. First, think about where you'd have to go. Entire populations would be forced to abandon their homes. Billions of people, all trying to squeeze into a ribbon of land that might only be a few hundred miles wide in some places. Every country's borders would be meaningless. Entire continents would be uninhabitable. Would nations work together to carve out a safe zone? Or would chaos reign, people fighting, rioting, doing whatever it takes to claim the last scraps of livable ground? And then there's the question of food. Our crops depend on sunlight, but too much sunlight scorches them and too little freezes them. Farming in the twilight zone would be possible, but it would be fragile. Greenhouses would be essential. Hydroponics, vertical farms, maybe even lab-grown food would stop being future tech and become the only tech that matters. Shelter? Forget skyscrapers and suburbs. Humans would need to build underground cities, thick domes, or even live beneath the oceans just to escape the constant winds, the strange storms, and the harsh swings in climate that would rage across the twilight belt. And here's a dark thought. Even if we managed to survive in that twilight, how long could we keep going? The planet's weather systems wouldn't stabilize overnight. Superstorms could still rip across the twilight zone without warning. Resources would run dry, people would turn on each other, but humans have a strange habit of surviving the impossible. We built civilizations in deserts, on frozen tundras, on tiny islands in the middle of nowhere. So maybe, just maybe, we'd find a way again. Maybe a thin ribbon of Earth would become humanity's new cradle. Maybe we'd learn to build floating cities, massive shields against the sun, or sprawling tunnel networks under the ground. But here's the real question. Would we cooperate to survive, or would we destroy each other before the planet even had the chance? After everything we've imagined, the storms, the floods, the fire and ice, you might be wondering, could this really happen? The short answer is no. Earth isn't just going to stop spinning one day. The laws of physics don't work like that. It would take an unimaginable amount of force to bring our planet to a halt, far more than any natural event in Earth's history. But let's play with the possibilities for a second. A collision with a truly massive object, bigger than anything that's ever hit us, might do it. Picture an asteroid hundreds of miles wide slamming into Earth with so much force that it cancels out our spin. Of course, by the time that happened, the impact itself would have already obliterated everything. What about some wild sci-fi idea, like aliens stopping Earth's rotation with unimaginable technology? Sure, it's a stretch, but not outside the realm of what if. Or maybe over billions of years, Earth will naturally slow down, the way the moon already has. Locked to us, always showing the same face. Scientists say this will happen eventually, but not for billions of years. By then, the sun itself will have changed so much that life as we know it won't be here to see it. So no, Earth isn't suddenly going to slam to a stop tomorrow morning. But here's the thing. Thinking about it makes us realize just how fragile everything is. The thin atmosphere we breathe, the oceans that sit neatly in their basins, the balance of day and night, heat and cold that we take for granted every single day. All of it depends on the fact that our planet spins. Take that away, and the world we know disappears. Forever. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to subscribe. And if you want curious questions answered, have a look at some of our other videos.